Okay, before we get started, this account was created to provide information on how current immigration laws apply to certain factual scenarios. There are many people, I suspect, who are worried about their immigration situation but are not sure if they should speak with an immigration attorney. Keep in mind, and I cannot stress this enough, that immigration law is unbelievably fact-specific. So even if the hypothetical that I analyze here sounds nearly identical to your situation, you still need to speak to an immigration attorney. The smallest factual differences can change everything. That said, this is not legal advice. I'm merely hoping to educate some people on how the immigration laws work, because I know that a lot of anxiety exists out in certain immigrant communities. Also, immigration laws and procedures will likely change significantly over the next few months, so what might be accurate and current at the time of recording could be outdated in the weeks to come or even tomorrow. All right, so this individual was born in England. She came to the United States when she was 3 years old with a visitor visa. Her parents had always told her she was a U.S. citizen. She went to school in the U.S., married, and raised a family. She received a Social Security card when she was much younger. She has voted in the U.S. She recently learned that she is not a U.S. citizen when she went to apply for a passport and could not find any certificate of citizenship or prior U.S. passports. Both of her parents are deceased. She is married to a U.S. citizen and has been for decades. She is interested in legalizing her status. So before we get into it, if this is anywhere near your situation, immediately go talk to an immigration attorney. False claim to citizenship cases are extremely fact-specific, even more so than other cases. So do not try and do this case on your own. Now, with that said, as a general rule, claiming to be a U.S. citizen when you are not is an absolute bar to a green card, okay? There's no waiver available. There's no, if you spend this much time outside of the country, then you can come in. It's one of the biggest offenses in immigration law as a general rule. There are some exceptions. Well, first of all, let's go over what constitutes a false claim. So a false claim is going to be some type of claim to be a U.S. citizen, either in writing or to a person, possibly to someone in the government. And it has to have the intent of obtaining some kind of benefit. It can be an immigration benefit. It can be any type of benefit under federal or state law. We only have limited facts here, but one of them is that the individual voted. Okay, so that would mean that this individual registered to vote and then went and voted. So they claimed to be a U.S. citizen when they registered to vote. That would be in writing, and it would be for some type of benefit, the benefit of voting in this case. So that would constitute a false claim. Now, what we have to look at is there an exception in this case to that rule? So there is an exception for people that reasonably believed they were U.S. citizens, okay? This individual was told by their parents that they were a U.S. citizen. They had lived here since they were 3 years old. They had gone to school here. The parents are now deceased, so trying to prove that the parents had told them that might be difficult. But if we can reach out to any surviving aunts or uncles who might say, well, we thought that they were a U.S. citizen as well, or I remember my sister, this person's mother, telling me that they were a U.S. citizen, we might be able to argue that the individual had a reasonable belief that they were a U.S. citizen when they registered to vote or when they did any number of other things, applied for Social Security or whatever it might be. Those are the things you want to look at when it comes to that. Now, obviously, there's a lot on the line here. So if the U.S. citizen's spouse applies for a green card for this individual, you're going to go in, you're going to go to an interview. The questions on the form will ask, have you ever voted in an election? Have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen? You need to say, yes, you have. And then the officer will likely inquire a lot more about that. So if the case is denied, then they would put this person into removal proceedings, into deportation proceedings, and then we would have to defend that case. So getting a quality assessment on whether this case is winnable is going to be extremely important. Another thing to consider here is whether the person actually is a U.S. citizen. Okay, so if one of the parents was a U.S. citizen, then we might be able to argue that this individual obtained U.S. citizenship through that parent. Now, for that, we generally are going to have to show that the parent was in the United States for a certain period of time from certain ages. That really depends on the date of birth of the people involved. But we might be able to show that the person is actually a U.S. citizen. We're going to have to go back and show most likely that the parent was in the United States for elementary school or or junior high, something like that, to show that they spent enough time in the United States that they conveyed that U.S. citizenship to this individual. If that's the case and we can prove that, then it doesn't matter if they were voting all these years, because technically they were a U.S. citizen. So we have two pathways that we can kind of explore here. One is showing that they have derivative citizenship even though they were born outside the United States. The other one is to adjust the person's status and go for the green card, but in that case we really need to feel very confident that that this person had a reasonable belief that they were a U.S. citizen. Along those lines, we might use a polygraph test too. Get a private polygraph company to do a polygraph test for this person and ask the question, did you believe you were a U.S. citizen? Did your mother or father tell you at some point, yes, you are a U.S. citizen? That could go a long way to showing that they had this reasonable belief. Again, any false claim to U.S. citizenship case, do not do this on your own. You can call us, we can help you, but you should definitely call an attorney that has experience with these before you move in this realm, because doing one of these on your own, eventually you're probably going to need an attorney, and it'll be more expensive to get an attorney involved later than it is to get them involved early on. Hopefully that's helpful. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We've handled plenty of these types of cases. Each one is different. So we're happy to help. Good luck, everyone. Take care of yourselves and have a good day.